Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. This is Amy from Coffee with Amy Kang. So now it's about 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and this is the first time that I do live at this hour. And today I'm going to have a special guest coming up to share about Enneagram and the relationship. So if you are happens to be at this Facebook Live or even at the YouTube channel, please say hello to us, and then we will be happy to share with you more about this topic on Enneagram and the relationship. Good afternoon. So just feel free to say hello to us. Good afternoon to you. And I'm going to introduce to you the speaker that is coming up today is Dr. Frederik Coene. Hi, Dr.
Hi,
Frederik
everybody.
Coene. Hi, Dr. Frederik Coene is from a EU diplomat from Ukraine. And Dr. Frederik, can you tell us a bit about yourself and who are you? What do you do in life? Yeah, Dr.
Yeah,
Frederik.
well, first of all, thank you for having me on this virtual coffee and to have a discussion on the Enneagram and relationships and so on. So as I was indeed introduced, I'm Frederik Coene. I am actually from Belgium, and indeed I work as a diplomat for the European Union, and currently I am based in Ukraine. But next to my daytime job, I need some other more intellectual challenges, and I'm very much interested in self-development, psychology, spirituality, and so on and so on. So this is why I am very much interested in personalities, like how do people behave, why do they behave the way they do, and so on. And about 8-9 years ago, I got in touch with the Enneagram. And so this whole model of this psychology typology is something that really interests me. So for the past 5-6 years, I've really spent a lot of time going deep and trying to research a lot about it.
So you mentioned you are an Enneagram researcher. So most people here watching may not know what the Enneagram is. Can you explain a bit more about what this is about?
Yeah, indeed. So the Enneagram, well, people refer to it shorthand as Enneagram, but to be correct, it's actually the psychology of the Ennea types. The Enneagram itself is just a symbol. And if you would just look for it on Google, you'll see it's like a circle with 9 points and there's a few lines and it all looks very random, but it's not. There's something of a very, there's something of a higher order that is inside this image. Now, there are 9 points on this image, and these 9 points reflect 9 different personality types. And to explain it in a very simple way, I would say that nobody of us is looking at the world purely objectively. We are all somehow distorting it. When there's something that happens in life and we don't know exactly what is happening, we try to fill in the gap. We try to just add something to it, right? So imagine I start shouting at you now, Amy, right? And then you're like, oh my God, Frederik is shouting at me. Your brain is going to start creating a story. You don't know what's happening with me, but you may think like, oh, maybe I said something wrong and now he's upset at me, and what is he going to do? Or maybe you're going to say, oh, maybe he thinks that I'm somehow inferior, he thinks he's superior, and he doesn't like me, right? So your brain is going to make it up. So there are different ways of how we make stories up in our own mind and how we try to give meaning to what happens around us. And there's actually 9 different strategies. There's 9 strategies of our ego to somehow fill in this gap. And each of these different types is as a result going to act in a different way. So for example, if you would fear that you said something wrong to me and this is why I shouted at you, then maybe you will be very fearful. And this type of people are going to be fearful in just everything they do. They look at the world as, what if this happens? What if that happens? But maybe somebody else who may believe that, he doesn't like me, he doesn't appreciate me. Probably deep inside myself, I am deficient. There is nothing inside of me that is to be loved. And also then you're going to behave in a different way. So it really explains on a very deep level what motivates our behavior. So we can see that, for example, some people are going to be hardworking, and just say that, let's put the hardworking people and the lazy people into two groups. That's a psychology, but like, so what? What do you do with it? But it's more interesting to look at the motivation, because everybody can be hardworking. The question is rather like, why are people hardworking? So, for example, the first group that I said, that you may be afraid that you did something wrong. People who have this constant fear, what if this happens? What if that happens? As a result of that, they may become very hardworking in order to avoid anything going wrong. Or like the type that believes that I am not lovable, maybe they're going to start working, because if they work hard, they're going to get the impression that I have achieved something and now I am worthy of love. And there's 9 strategies like that. And all of the 9 are going to think, well, maybe Frederik had a bad night and he's just tired and he's very reactive and that's why he's shouting, right? We all just make it up and we don't know what the real story is. So that is the basis of the psychology of the Enneatypes, these 9 distortions. And maybe just to illustrate it and to wrap up this answer, I would say it's a little bit like glasses. Imagine that you have glasses with like a rose glass, right? And everything you see in the world is going to look rose. And somebody else has glasses that are a bit blue, so everything is going to appear blue. And somebody else has like green glasses, everything is going to look green. So you can have 9 different glasses, and 9 different types of people are going to see the world through a different color, and they believe that this is how the world is. But in reality, it's all distortions.
So how do we know like which type we belongs to? How do we go about getting to know the type of Enneagram type we are?
Well, there's different ways of doing it. If you want to go for the very shortcut, you can just take a test. There are many tests that are online. Some of them are free of charge, others you have to pay for. But actually, none of these tests are fully accurate. Because what the test does, the test is not looking like, are you hardworking or not, right? It is not looking at some kind of objective things in the world. The test is more looking at the motivation. What is driving you? Why are you doing the things you are doing? And as a result, when you are taking this test, when you are answering it on the basis of how you perceive yourself.
Yeah.
Because, for example, myself, when I did this test, I did not come out as the type that I am, because I don't see myself as being a fearful person. I don't perceive myself as somebody who's worrying. I think that everybody's worrying like me. I think everybody is as fearful as me. So again, as I said, we are looking through to the world with these glasses, with these colors, but we're also answering the questions in this questionnaire through that angle. We're also distorted in answering the questions. So very often, this questionnaire is not going to lead us to the right type. I mean, it can give you a direction. So it's most often you have to look at the first 2 or 3, and it's going to be one of these. So that's one way, but it's not reliable. A second way is really to maybe work with a therapist. For example, there's many coaches, psychologists, and so on, who are also using the Enneagram, because the Enneagram is very helpful for people to learn how to analyze themselves. It gives some kind of guidance in how to look for certain things. It helps you in looking like, how are you sabotaging your own life? And so if you work with a coach or a therapist, they can help you in identifying your type. Normally, they're not going to say, oh, you are type 5, for example. No, they're just going to help you so that you ask yourself the right questions so you get to the conclusion yourself. But then the best way of understanding your type is really by spending a lot of time reflecting on it. So, for example, in my case, it took me 3 years to figure out my type because I was
3 years.
fooling myself. I was seeing the type that I maybe wanted to be, or maybe the type that I didn't want to be, but I was not seeing my own behavior the way it is. I was not looking at myself in an objective enough manner. So this is why the best way I would say is for people not to rush. We live in a society nowadays where everything has to be very, very quick, right? We want to go to a training and we think that we just listen to something for 3 nights and now we're an expert. That's not how it goes. Self-development is a slow and a painful process. You have to give it time. And it's actually the process of figuring out your type that is more important almost than knowing your type. If I tell you, Amy, you are type 4, for example, I don't know your type, but if I would say you are type 4, what does that give you? Nothing. You don't know anything about yourself. But it is the process of figuring it out that is the most rewarding.
Discovery, self-discovery.
Exactly. It's all about self-discovery.
Okay, interesting. So, like, doctor, so like, what's the difference between this typology and other typology like MBTI, for example?
Yeah. Look, there are many personality typologies, and MBTI is one of the big one, of course. Now, the difference is that, first of all, the Enneagram is the only typology that I am aware of that really looks at motivation, not at behavior. Because most typologies really look like, are you introverted or extroverted? Are you more a feeling person or not? I mean, all these kind of things. But then, like, so what? I mean, it categorizes you, it puts you in a box, but then so what? Whereas the Enneagram really tries to understand your behavior. It's not what you do, but why do you do the things that you do? And it's once you understand these motivations that you can do something about it. Because the Enneagram is not only a typology, the typology is only the start. Once you understand it, then you can actually work with it. You can do something on your own development.
I remember that during your presentation at the Singapore Enneagram conference, you said that self-development always happens in relationships. Doctor, can you tell a little bit more about this?
Yeah. I mean, there's many people who are interested in self-development, spirituality, doing their inner work and so on. And there are many approaches to it. And as I already said, we live in some kind of consumption society where everything has to go very quickly, right?
Yeah.
Where we just think that we're going to do this and that, and the problem is solved. I mean, in the past, what happened when people really wanted to develop psycho-spiritually, they would pray every day, they would meditate for 30, for 40 years, and then suddenly maybe something would happen, right? But now we just want to go to one retreat and we think that we're already enlightened and that we have gone through all our traumas and so on. Now, that's not how development goes. It's not because you're meditating that suddenly everything is going to be fine, right? I've seen many cases of people who went to workshops on childhood trauma for 1 week. And then after 1 week, they said, I've gone through all my childhood trauma and now everything is fine. Now my relationship with my parents is good. And then they come home, they go to their parents, and within 15 minutes, they get triggered again. And it's again, oh, my father this, my mother that, and so on and so on. So it's not by going to a workshop or a retreat that you get rid of everything. Yes, it is helpful. It is part of the process. And it's not by meditating, right? You can sit in a cave for 40 days and meditate the whole day. But when you get out of the cave, you still come back to the real world. And the way we live in the world is very social. Our whole world is about relationships with other people. And you can really see it is the quality of the relationships that we have that is going to show if somebody is psychologically or psycho-spiritually mature. If you believe that you are almost enlightened, that you are highly spiritual, but you're having a fight with your parents, you're not able to engage with your teenage children, there's still something wrong. You still have not achieved this high sense of maturity. So it is really in developing relationships where you accept the other people for who they are. If you can talk to other people without getting triggered, without getting reactive, this is where the real growth happens. The real growth is about, I engage with you, Amy. You say something that I don't like, but instead of getting upset with you, I process it and I take a conscious decision of what I'm going to do. Instead of shouting back, I just think like, oh, Amy is saying something from her side. And I interpret it through my lens. She's wearing her, let's say, the green glasses, and I wear the blue glasses. And that creates a clash. But it's not her intention to have a clash. And there is nothing inside of me why I would clash with Amy. So this is why I should first try to process it in my mind before I impulsively react to what is happening. And you can only learn that process by engaging with other people. You're not going to learn that by meditating. Again, meditating is not bad. Meditating is a very, very important process. And the practice, the spiritual practice of meditating is just practicing this ability to communicate with somebody and to be objective without using these colored glasses. So I hope you now understand a little bit more why I mean that it's through the relationships with other people that we can really grow as humans.
Yeah, I think it really have to be like in practice, like really interacting, then you'll know the chemistry that comes out from the interaction with the other party. So it's a social thing.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, this is really insightful, Doctor. I'd like to also know, like, what do you see as the biggest problem in love relationships now?
Yeah, I mean, love is one of these topics that we all talk about. It's something that I have researched a lot.
I
think
like to talk about love.
Yeah, I think 90% of the songs are about love, right?
Yeah.
And then many movies are about love. But I think that
Yes.
the question is, what is love, right? And I think that we in our society, or well, I can mainly speak for the Western civilization, because I'm not going to speak on behalf of Singapore and its culture, of course. But what I can say from the Western civilization is that we have a very immature form of love.
Immature?
And I would, immature, not healthy,
Really?
a very childish form of love.
Really?
And
Tell me about it.
yeah. I mean, for the audience, people who are very interested in that, I can definitely advise them to read a book from Erich Fromm. It's called The Art of Loving.
Okay.
It's a very good book, just 100 pages. You can read it in about an hour and a half or so, but it's very in detail. It's Erich Fromm, The Art of Living. Now, what Erich Fromm writes is nothing new, right? But he's really putting very important things together that ancient philosophers have talked about a lot. But I would say there's two main types of love. There's mature love, a very adult love, and there is some kind of immature, a childlike form of love. Now, the childlike form of love is about I fall in love. It's something that happens to me. It's something that I get. It is something that fills me because I am empty inside and the other person completes me. It's very much like I cannot live without you and I won't allow you to live without me. Right? It's a very immature, it's very romantic, but it's actually not mature. Because the true mature love is not that it is something that happens to you. Mature love is a conscious decision. It is the fact that you say that I am with a person and it is my decision to love that person. I take the decision and the responsibility to show care for that person, to accept the person the way he or she is. I'm not going to change that person. If there is something that the person does, because we all have flaws, I accept the flaws of that person. And instead of trying to correct that other person, I accept the flaws and I change my approach to it. If I don't get something that I would want, and I know my partner cannot give it, then I'm not going to expect it. In this immature form of love, it's all about I want to get something. You have to do this for me. I want you to do that for me. But it's not healthy because in this immature form of love, you're not seeing the person for who he really is. You just have some kind of projection of how you would like the person to be. You idealize, and then you hope to get something because you have expectations, and then it doesn't happen. And then you get upset, and then there's a problem with your husband or with your wife, and that and that and that is wrong. And I would want my husband to change. But it's all about your own expectations. It's about putting yourself into some kind of superior position, and the other has to comply. It's as if you feel you're the center of the universe. Whereas in this more mature form of love, you say that it is my obligation, it is my duty. I mean, if you look, when people marry, when there are marriage vows, very often they say in marriage, I promise to love you in good days and in bad days, in good health and in bad health. If you look at the marriage vows, it's written in a way that's not romantic. It's written in a way that it's really like, I take a certain sense of duty upon myself. I take responsibility upon myself. It is my conscious decision to help you, to support you, to do whatever I can so that you can maximize your potential, that you can really fulfill your own mission in life. I want you to contribute to the world in a good way. I'm going to support you. It's not about what I can get out of it. And I think that in our society, most people are looking at love from the sense that I want to get. They have expectations. It's not about giving. It's not being at the service of the person you love. And it's a little bit like I once saw a YouTube video or so. There was a Jewish rabbi who was speaking about fish love. And he said, fish love, I mean, we think we love fish, but what does loving fish mean? Right? It means that you kill a fish and then you eat it. Is that love?
Wow, this kind of love.
Loving fish is not about killing them and eating them. Loving fish is about seeing how they are free in nature, letting them swim and making sure they can have a great life. And it's the same with our partners. It's not about taking everything out of the partner. It's about giving to the partner. And if you approach love from the wrong perspective, if you marry with somebody because you want to get something, you will never be happy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that like although you say that you cannot say on behalf of Singaporean or even the Asia culture, but I would really think that like most of the people that interact with mostly come from this mindset of trying to complete themselves with a partner. So what I learned from my metaphysics is about scarcity mindset versus abundance mindset. If we are coming from the angle of I am enough and I'm here to journey with you to like see the better of us together, then I would say that it's coming from that angle of this abundance mindset, and this is like what we will doctor refer as the matured love.
Yes.
And as for myself, I just feel that yeah, I come from a broken family that because like I would say that divorce rate in Singapore and in other country is actually on the rise, and that sometimes it's because that we didn't come from the angle of wanting to how do I say it? Like wanting to like how do I say like like we're coming from the angle of immature love. So if we can actually more people in this world can actually learn to come from this perspective of matured love, that is to journey together with others for a betterment of each everyone, then I think lesser cases of divorce will happen. Yeah. Mm.
Indeed, and thank you very much for raising these concepts of scarcity and abundance, because
Mm.
you're mentioning some key words here.
Mm.
Because in this immature love, you really approach love from this perspective of scarcity. I have not enough. There's emptiness inside of myself. I need to fill that emptiness, and I'm going to use my partner to fill that emptiness. And in mature love, you have enough. There is no emptiness inside. It's
Mm.
about giving.
Mm, mm,
And
mm.
if there is a problem in the relationship, because there's not a single relationship that has no contention, no disagreements. But if disagreements happen, you don't need to fight for being right.
Mm,
You're just going to look for how can we make sure that the relationship is fine, because I am a full entity that is abundant. My partner is full, independent, and abundant. How can we live together in a mutually supportive way? And it's not about who's right and wrong. It's more about how do we support each other.
mm, mm, mm.
So
Well
indeed,
said.
scarcity and abundance are really key words in understanding it better.
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, I learned this scarcity and abundance mindset from my master, and I think that is really very helpful. That it gives me the because I used to be a like I mean I have a lot of rooms for improvement, and after I learned about this abundance mindset, I learned to before I speak or do any action, I need to see that uh, I I don't deprive people of their how do I say that deprive people. I mean I may not be able to bring across my message very clearly, but I just hope that we can learn from each other in a relationship to become better. Sorry about it. Yeah. So I like to ask doctor, how can people improve their relationship? Do you have like some kind of recipe?
Well, there's unfortunately I cannot give a formula, right? I cannot say that you do this and that, and then suddenly magically everything's going to be fine. Unfortunately, not. But then there are definitely things that can work, and I do have some kind of, I would call it some kind of paradigm of what I believe is a good way of trying to improve relationships. And I
Mm-hmm.
call it, and it's like 4 stages: know, understand, accept, and love. It sounds very easy, but it's a highly complex process. But let me just give a little bit of flesh to the bone. Because the first stage in order to improve your relationships, in order to love somebody, you first need to know the person. And knowing the person means that you really want to know what is happening with the person. You want to have the objective facts, because very often we look at our partner the way we would want the person to be. We somehow have an internalized image, how we want the person to be. We idealize the other person, and that's not how the person is. So the first thing is we need to have an objective look at the person. And in order to know the person, you really need to somehow, you really need to listen. You need to communicate. I think that nowadays people don't communicate with each other anymore. We're always on Facebook, Messenger, WhatsApp, and so on and so on. But do we communicate? Communicating means that you ask a question, you get an answer, and you listen. You listen in a state of meditation. So you're really fully present. You listen what the person has to say. You're not distorting it through your own perceptions. You're not using your glasses, right? The rose or the blue glasses to distort it. No. If the person says that I am disappointed about that, and the person is disappointed, do not put more on top of it. Don't start interpreting it. Just get the facts. Try to know the other person, but also know yourself. You really need to know, like, who am I? What is happening in my life? Am I doing what I want to do? You need to be honest to yourself. You need to get your own facts correctly. So that's the first thing, the knowing, having the facts. The second thing is understanding. This is where the interpretation has to come in. But how do we interpret? You can interpret through your own distortions. You can interpret through your own trauma, your own issues, your own preferences, and so on. Or you can really use some kind of wisdom that has existed for thousands and thousands of years. You can use that wisdom to really understand what is happening. And it's very much about, why is the person doing what he or she is doing? Why is this person upset? Why is my partner reactive? Why did my partner shout, although he probably didn't mean to shout, but it did happen? Why is all of that happening? And then once you understand what is happening, then almost automatically you are going to accept it. If you know that your husband was shouting at you because he really didn't sleep well, and then he had a hard day at work, and then the teenage kids were fighting, and then of course he got very reactive, you may not like it, but you understand why it's happening, and then you accept it. You accept that this is part of who your partner is. You don't want to change it, right? We all have our good sides and our bad sides. And you just accept these good sides, and you equally accept the bad sides. You're not trying to impose your will. You don't want to change it. Yes, you may want that it would be different, but you know you're not going to change it. And you accept that. You accept that the situation is as it is. And then almost automatically, when you accept the person for who he or she is, that is when you truly can love, and love in a mature way, really supporting. When you see that your partner was tired, had a hard day at work, and then the teenage kids were fighting, and your husband reacts, instead of also reacting and just making the whole thing worse, no, you just love. And you try to support your husband. You do the things that are required in order for your husband also to find an inner sense of peace. You support him so that it doesn't get worse. And again, you cannot love without accepting. You cannot accept without understanding, and you cannot understand without knowing. But again, it looks very simple, but it's a very complex process that takes a lot of work.
Okay. So, how can Enneagram help in these situations? How can it come in?
Yeah. So, I mean, as I already said, the Enneagram is not just the typology that puts you in a box, right? It's not like you are that type, And well, so be it. No. The beauty of the Enneagram is that it actually helps you in this second stage, in this understanding. Because, for example, in my own case, I know that I am type 6. And type 6 has this kind of anxiety. They're worried. They have a constant sense of fear. They're looking at the world with a radar like, what if this happens? What if that happens? Oh, maybe I should do this. And what if I do this? And so on. So there is like the mental power is constantly looking for potential problems, for potential dangers, and then is trying to somehow sort out. It's like mitigating the risks. It's like a permanent risk mitigation process that's happening. So in order to understand myself, it's very useful to know that I am doing this. If I see that I'm again worried about this, I'm worried about that, I'm worried about everything. And most of these things never happen. 99% of the things that I worry about don't happen. Only 1% materializes. So I spend a lot of energy, lots of mental energy in solving problems that never will happen to me. And it's useful to understand that this is happening. And it's also useful to understand my partner in that way. So for example, my wife is a type 2. And type 2, they want to have this sense that they're being loved, and they want to achieve this sense of being loved by being needed. And being needed by taking care, by giving compliments, by making the house look very nice and so on. And just like I am overdoing my worrying, she can overdo this pleasing to me. And sometimes this can also upset me or frustrate me because everything that is overdone is not pleasant anymore. But if I see why she's doing that, when I see that she's pleasing me, it means that in reality, she doesn't want to please me. She wants to get the signal that she's loved. She wants to get the sense that she's lovable. If she's reacting in a harsh manner, it is because it's not because I did something wrong. It is because she has a sense that she's not lovable on a very, very deep down level. And if I know that this is happening and I know why this is happening, I can understand her behavior. And as a result, I'm not going to get upset because I know this is how she is. This is somehow how her brain is programmed. And I cannot change it. It's like a computer, right? If a computer is running on the Mac, on Apple OS, you're not going to turn it into Windows, and Windows is not going to run as Unix or Linux or something like that, right? It's like the operating system. You're not going to change it. You just have to accept that this is the way how things are. But you need to understand it. So the Enneagram helps you in this process of understanding. Understanding both yourself and the partner.
I'm curious because I'm a type 7. So can you share a little bit more about type 7 in this situation here? Like how can Enneagram help to improve my relationship with others?
Yeah, sure. Well, look, for you personally, to understand how this type 7 comes up is the following. Type 7 is also part of this fearful triad. And for the people who are not familiar with the Enneagram, so apologies that I will use some of the specific vocabulary, but type 7 comes from the head triad, and they're very much driven by a fear. And what I was saying was, me as type 6, when I'm fearful, what I do is I always think in worst case scenarios. Type 7 always thinks in best case scenarios, right? What they do is they're always seeking something bright, something positive. Why? Not because they're just optimists and everything is great. No. They are running away from their own fear of being in touch with something that's fearful, with something that's painful. It's overwhelming them. And as a result, very often, if there's a problem in the relationship, instead of tackling the problem, they run away from it. They want to have fun. And it's not because it's not because they're these optimistic people. No, deep inside of them, type 7 has something that can be depressive. And this is why type 7 very often, when they're undergoing a lot of stress, when they are highly traumatized, they can have what was called in the past like manic depressive personality disorder, really going from this high optimism that everything is wonderful, brilliant, and then going into this deep depth of being truly depressed, how horrible life is. And they can have these ups and downs. Now, if you realize this pattern that you tend to run away from problems because you just want to see everything in a positive daylight, it can help you in saying that, okay, look, Amy, there's a problem in the relationship. I need to tackle it. I cannot keep running away from it. And I have to dig deep. I have to dig very deep. I cannot just be on the superficial level. So I have to bring in a sense of vulnerability. I have to really listen to the other. So that's on a very basic level, what type 7 needs to do in relationships.
I do agree that, yeah, sometimes when I meet with something traumatic, I will run away. That's so true about me. Yeah. Okay, so we come to this
And again, I just want to make it clear that there's nothing specifically wrong with that, right? It's just a defense mechanism. It's a survival strategy. And if there's a problem, and by focusing on the nice things in life, in itself, that's not bad. I mean, if you're going to constantly focus on the negative things, you're going to get depressed and you're not going to have a nice life. So it's a defense mechanism that helps you to survive. The problem is only that if you always use that defense mechanism in every single situation, then you also start sabotaging yourself. Defense mechanism is good in some situations, but in some other situations, you need to use another mechanism.
Okay, yeah, so much more to learn from you, doctor. So, doctor, at the conference, you also mentioned the topic of sex. Why is it so important, and what does the Enneagram and the 9 type have to do with it?
Okay, that's a big, interesting question, of course. And for the
Yes.
past 5 years, I've done quite a lot of research on that. And the importance of it is the following. First of all, in relationships, in marriage, when there is a problem in marriage, sexual problems are either going to be the root cause of the problems in marriage, or they're going to be a consequence of a problem in marriage. For example, if there is a fight about money or sharing of responsibilities, then at the end, it's also going to have an impact on the sexual relationship of the couple. But if couples have a problem in their sexual relationship, it's also going to end up with a problem, for example, on distribution of tasks in the family. So sex is always going to be part of the equation. But many marital and relationship therapists don't talk about sex.
Why?
So, well, very often because they're not at ease themselves.
Oh.
Very often, these therapists have some issues around sex themselves that they have not fully worked themselves through. Very often, they don't have the vocabulary. They don't have a framework in which they have to place it. Because if you're working with a therapist and you explain your problem, very often the therapist can easily say this and that dynamics, it works like this and that and that and that. The therapist can very easily analyze it and frame the challenge, and is then going to work with the couple in a way to somehow disentangle all these issues. But if you're not able to see what is linked with what, then it's like a chaos for the therapist as well. And the therapist doesn't want to go in a place where he or she doesn't know what's happening. So this is why many relationship therapists are not going to look at it. But the second important thing why I believe it's very important to talk about sex is that also in the self-development community, sex is very much absent.
Yeah.
We're always talking about dealing with childhood trauma, about how to deal with your relationships with your parents, how to set some healthy boundaries, and so on and so on and so on. But nobody talks about sex, or it doesn't happen very often. If you're looking at the Enneagram teachers, they're all talking about self-development, how you have to deal with your trauma, and so on, but they don't talk about sex. And when we're talking about trauma, when we're talking about self-development, about doing your inner work, about growth, it's about working with the things that are really a problem to you, right? So what happens very often in self-development is that people deal with the things that are not too difficult to deal with. They have a problem in setting boundaries. Oh, they work on setting boundaries and then everything is fine. But they don't look at the things that are really a problem.
Yeah.
And the reality is that because of our societal views on sex and the distortion that we have in sex in our what we see on TV and so on, we are all somehow traumatized about the topic of sex. And if you really want to grow, you have to tackle the things where you're truly traumatized. So as long as we're not going to, on the individual and also on the collective level, deal with this sexual trauma, we're not going to be able to develop our full potential. So this is why I have done quite a lot of research. And I would say that one of the main conclusions of the research is that people have sex for the wrong reasons. Very often.
Tell me about it.
Why do people have sex?
Pleasure. Wrong
Pleasure,
reason.
okay. If we look,
offspring.
Well, look, if we look in the animal world, there's, let's say, three functions of the sexual intercourse. One is reproduction, right? It is reproducing the genes so that after our death they continue to exist. The second reason after reproduction is recreation. It's like a pleasureful activity. And what it does is it lowers our level of anxiety. It lowers our level of stress. It's like, what I would say is like orgasm is a little bit like the reset button on a computer. Remember in the good old days when Windows was freezing and you had this blue screen? What did you do? You push the reset button and then everything was fine again. The same happens through sex. If you are anxious, if you're upset, if you're stressed, something like that, after the sexual act, people feel much more relaxed.
Yes.
People after sex are more easygoing. I mean, if they are so upset and they're like, oh, my boss is like this and that, and then they have sex and it's like, yeah, look, my boss is not an easy guy, but oh, well, whatever, forget about it, right? So it's our way of resetting our central nervous system. We get less reactive. Now, so procreation, recreation, and the third is relation. There is some groups of mammals, and especially the primates, they also have sex as a bonding experience. Why? Very simple. For very primitive animal species, it is just one parent who takes care of the little kids, right? But for more complex species, you need two parents who take care of kids. This is the challenge that single parents have, right? It's very, very difficult to raise kids, have a job, make sure that everything is going fine, and so on. Now, if you're with two people, it becomes more easy, right?
Yeah.
So how do you make sure that the two people stay together? one of the ways is through sex, because what happens is during sex, there's a release of oxytocin. Oxytocin is the hormone that makes us care about the other person. If somebody has sex with somebody else, automatically they want to care for that person. So these are the three main reasons. But many people, if you ask, why do you have sex? They say, oh, I want to feel powerful, or I want to feel taken care of, or I want to feel submissive, or I just want to have fun, or I want to feel that there's some kind of tender care towards me. But most of these reasons have nothing to do with procreation, recreation, or relation. It's all about what I call ego gratification. Or ego says that I am not lovable, so I want to feel loved, so I'm going to have sex and I'm going to feel that I'm loved. Or in order to survive in the world, I need to feel powerful and I am going to have sex and I am going to overpower my spouse. And now I'm going to feel that I can survive in the world. Or somebody else says that, oh, I am very deficient, I am not worthy, so I just have to be submissive and masochistic. So they're going to have sex and they're just going to subdue and they want to take a very submissive and even masochistic role. That's not what sex is about. But if you're having sex for these reasons, things are not going to work out. You're looking for something you're not going to find there. And this is why very often people say that they're not satisfied with their sexual relationship and they don't know why. And they say that there's something wrong with my partner. But what's happening is that in the bedroom, they put on these glasses, right? The blue, the orange, the yellow glasses. And then the partner puts on his or her glasses. And they're not interacting with each other. Both are seeing it through the distortion of their own, of these glasses again, right? And as a result, it's very common that there is something like that. And again, if you're looking for something that you cannot find there, you're going to be unhappy. If you go to the bakery and you want to buy sausages, don't blame the bakery, right? You went in the wrong place to find something that is not going to be there. And if we're looking at non-monogamy, for example, some people believe that, oh, I cannot find sexual pleasure with my partner, so I'm going to find something else. It's like you go to a bakery to buy sausages, you don't find sausages, you blame the baker. So what do? You go to the next bakery and you also try to find sausages there, but you're not going to find it. The problem is not with the bakery, the problem is with yourself. So this is how the Enneagram can help us in understanding partially why we may have a sense of sexual dissatisfaction. And also what we should do in order to get out of it.
Doctor, do you actually do like you do the research on these sex studies, and do you also like guide people using Enneagram to improve their maybe sexual relationships, like on a more professional basis? Do you do that?
I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor. I am. What I do is I do sometimes work with people in order to explore things with them. I can give my perception, but again, it's not formal therapy.
I see, I see. Just your own insights that what you have researched, you just share it with some of the people that comes to your life, like.
Yes, exactly. I share my insights and I try to support people. I try to guide them into some kind of self-reflection in how to analyze themselves a little bit better. But it's not therapy.
Can I ask you one question? Like, why are you so passionate about Enneagram?
I don't like the word passionate, because passion is something that comes from one's ego.
Oh.
For me, it is more that I have an inner desire to fully understand what is happening, how is world functioning, how are people functioning. And I feel an inner mission somehow to collect complex knowledge, to format it in a way that is understandable for people in our contemporary society, and pass it on to them. I see myself as the tool through which ancient and new knowledge can somehow come together and really have it spread throughout the world. And this is what I enjoy doing. This is what I feel that I am good at. This is what I feel where I can have an added value for humanity.
Okay.
So it's not what I would say a passion, but more something that I truly enjoy doing and feel that I'm good at and can make a positive impact to the world with.
Impact. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Doctor, one last question for you is like, what other advice can you give to people who want to work on themselves to find more happiness in their life?
Well, again, that's a tough one, right? And this is what philosophers have been looking at for a long time. But I think that there are some things that we sometimes forget. I mean, if we're looking at self-development, many people are always trying to think of psychology alone. But I think that psychology and so on are just one aspect of it. I think what is very often forgotten is a healthy lifestyle, actually. If you are going to go to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning, then sleep until until noon, and then eat some hamburgers and then a cake with sugar and with some coffee to wake up, and then in the evening you drink alcohol, and then you take some sleeping pills in order to fall asleep at 4 at night, you're not going to find happiness, because you're not in tune with your biological nature. You're not living in harmony with the way God, universe, or whatever, how we have been created. So I think it's very important, first of all, even before you do all this psychological work, before you start doing the self-reflection, I think it's very important to work on the body. And that is good sleep. If you don't sleep well, you will be reactive.
Correct.
So go to bed early, wake up early. Ideally, go to bed before 10 in the evening, wake up before 6 in the morning. My wife, for example, she wakes up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, and then she does her own prayers, then she's doing some sports, she has a healthy breakfast, and by the time it's 8 o'clock, she's done so many things already. She has found this inner peace, and she's ready to start the day. So sleep is super important. Have enough sleep, but not too much sleep either. If you sleep too long, that's also bad. Secondly, food. There's certain food that is pulling you down. So for example, food that is very heavy to digest. I mean, if your digestion requires a lot of energy, the rest of the body doesn't get the energy. If you want to be able to be conscious, you need to make sure that the energy can go here and it doesn't go to your stomach. So for example, if you eat a lot of meat, it's very hard on the digestion. If you drink alcohol, it doesn't help your mind, and also for the digestion and so on. There's nothing positive in alcohol. Nothing, right? Sugar is also sugar is a silent killer. Sugar is extremely unhealthy. Look, if you look, for example, people who have autoimmune diseases, most autoimmune diseases can be healed. How? Completely cut out sugar, all sugar.
Wow.
So again, sugar in itself doesn't have anything positive in it.
Mm.
You can eat sugar from fruits, right? The fructose from fruits, for example. But the processed sugar is something you better stay away from because it is a silent killer.
Wow.
It attacks all your organs.
Mm.
So another important thing is some exercise. If
Mm.
your body is going to be in a good shape, then also your brain is going to work well. 2000 years ago in the Roman Empire, they knew it already, right?
Mm. Mm.
And what was it? Mens sane in corpore sano, right? A healthy mind and a healthy body. So also here, and again, I'm not saying something new. I'm just repeating what has been told for so many thousands of years already. So I think that by taking care of the body,
Mm.
we can really we create a foundation in which also our mind can work. And then maybe the other thing that I want to say is that we're only going to find, and it's again about this whole abundance versus scarcity.
Mm.
If we act from the mindset of scarcity, that I want to get, I want to get, I want to get, you're never going to be happy.
Mm. Mm.
If you think from I'm going to give, I am going to give, and I'm going to give, it's much easier to get happiness. And it sounds counterintuitive, right? You may think that the more you give, the poorer you will get. No, 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 because people get some kind of sense of fulfillment and satisfaction just from the act of giving. So this is why, of course, one has to be careful because there are some people who may suffer from neurotic giving. They give because then they think I'm entitled to get even more back. So it shouldn't be like that. It should be true altruistic giving. It should be giving without an expectation of getting back.
Mm.
So, and you can give in different ways. It can be through volunteering, for
Mm.
example. It can be through charity. You just give money for
Mm.
a good purpose or something like that. And I think that if you are dedicating more of your time, energy, and resources to this giving, to being at the service of other people, that it's going to be much easier to find inner peace and to find fulfillment and satisfaction in your own life.
Mm. 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 Wow. Thank you, Doctor. This is so simple yet it's a very good reminder for us regarding like sleep, food, and exercise, and also the act of giving from the abundance mindset. With that,
Yeah.
that conclude our talk for today. And I really, really appreciate your time here. And I really thank you to the audience who are here with us as well for your afternoon that spent with us listening to Dr. Insights about Enneagram and relationship and sex. So, Doctor, if I have my audience here who would like to connect with you, is it possible that you can leave us a way to keep on like communicate with you through the social media or any form of contact that you prefer?
Yeah, of course. People can always reach out to me on Facebook. Just add me as a friend or just send me a message. If you have any questions, something that you want to have clarified of what I said today, don't hesitate because again, as I said, I see that's my mission really to share the knowledge to really give to share with people what I know because I have experienced it through my own life, how it can really change life. So yeah, people can just ask questions and or also if they want to get some directions on maybe where to find courses, where to learn more about the Enneagram and so on, I'll be very happy to help out.
Wow, nice to know. Yes. So, audience, if you are interested to get to know more about Enneagram and how it can help you, you can uh, link with Dr. Frederick at his Facebook. It's Frederick Cohen. Right? Did I type it correctly, Doctor?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Elaine, for joining us. Thank you. And thank you, Doctor, again for your time and your energy here. Then we will keep in touch again, and the next week I will update you all with the next speaker coming up. Thank you, Doctor, and thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Hey, Doctor, you have anything to share before I want to go?
No, nothing to say. Just very grateful that I had the opportunity to speak with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. I
Good.
learned a lot from
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.